I'll be your host today, along with my co-host, Victor Armandaris.
And I'm Victor. Yes, the one from On Point with Victor.
And we're going to talk about gun things today. Well, actually, I should say weapon things for those of you who want to get technical. Yeah, just got an approval from somebody there. Of course,
Mr.
weapons can mean
Producer.
anything, so we may have to get into some knives on one of the shows or some, other types of weapons. Because after all, my hands can be deadly weapons. Although usually they're just clumsy and cumbersome.
Technically, my hands are deadly weapons.
That's right. Mr. Black Belt Armandaris over here.
That's right. And don't you... I'm so old now, I don't even know if I could kick somebody's knee, let alone their face.
Well, that's why I carry a gun, so I don't have to run.
That is perfect segment into why I carry a gun today, because people sometimes will ask, well, Victor, you're a black belt, you can handle yourself. I've seen you do, well, back in the day when I would do demonstrations, but you know what? I'm too old to fight. I'm too old and too wise to fight.
There you
so
go.
I carry a gun.
It was once said by somebody, a gun is a means of stopping a fight, either by its use or sometimes just by the threat thereof. Usually, if somebody doesn't have one and you show them one, it's going to end that fight very quickly, because most people are smart enough to know you don't bring fists to a gunfight.
One segment you should do on your show, Roger, is examples of guns stopping a crime without ever having to be brandished. Because I even have a personal story that we can get into later if you want to hear it, of where a gun stopped. I have two stories.
Two?
What?
Well, maybe we should take one of those.
All right.
Let's get into this. Tell us what happened.
So I had all right. So I was out in downtown Atlanta after a stop at Krispy Kreme Donuts.
Ooh.
Krispy Kreme, which should be a sponsor of this show. Because if you don't like Krispy Kreme, something's wrong with you. So I was out driving with a friend. We were in downtown Atlanta. We went to Krispy Kreme, noticed I needed gas, pulled into a BP station on Ponce de Leon. And this was about 11:30 at night.
On Ponce de Leon. Yeah, there was your first mistake.
Okay, right. True. Like I said, I'm much wiser now. This was my younger years when I was invincible.
Bulletproof.
And bulletproof. We pull in. I start pumping gas. My friend goes into the gas station to grab a drink. Now, me being just a little background, because of martial arts, I'm very observant. I was taught to be observant, which all of you should always be observant of your surroundings.
Situational awareness is key in
very
any
key.
situation.
Any situation is going to turn out better with situational awareness. So as I'm pumping gas, I scan the area. I do this second nature, and folks, you will too once you train yourself. So I scan the area, and I notice a guy walk in behind my friend. And as I can see through the window, so I'm watching this person follow my friend up and down the aisles. So I put the gas on auto pump and I walk into the store because I'm just ready for a situation. And my friend makes it up, pays for the drink, and this person starts accosting him, and me too, because I go and stand in between them. And they start saying, I need money. Well, why don't you just give me change? And I said, well, okay, well, what do you need change for? Oh, well, I need change for a 20. I said, well, I don't have change for a 20. I'm sorry, I just don't have any cash. Oh, well, you just don't want to give me money. And then they got more and more abrasive and more, let's just say, more foul.
And this was probably back before the days of the pump.
Yeah, it was. Well, it probably was, now that I think about it. So anyway, so we pay for everything. And as in any situation, no matter how trained I am, no matter what kind of weapon I have on me, I always try and either deflate the situation or walk away. So I got my friend and we walked away. We went outside. I put the pump up, got in the car. This guy then comes out. And as I'm starting to pull away from the pump, he runs up and starts banging on my rear window. So I slam on the brakes and I turn, and this guy's making his way to my window. I roll the window down, and all I had to do was actually my friend, because I had the gun between the seats, picked up the gun, never unholstered it, just picked up the gun. And this guy suddenly stopped in his tracks, looked at me, and he goes, oh, I'm sorry, I owe you an apology. And I said, no, you owe her an apology. And he profusely apologized and then continued to run away.
They always say an armed society is a polite society, and that just goes to show you. Didn't even have to pull it out, didn't have to just show them that it's there, and all of a sudden everybody is so polite, says please, thank you, and I'm sorry.
And I'm sorry. That's a true story, folks. True story.
Yeah. That's the means of stopping a fight by its use or even the threat thereof. Just the fact
Mhm.
that it was there was enough to stop somebody
Yep.
from potentially assaulting or damaging property or whatever it was he was planning on.
Yeah,
Who knows?
whatever he had planned, even if it was just I'm going to mess up your car or I'm going to come trying to take a swing at you, he never got that chance. And he could have been worse. He could have had a knife. He could have had something in his back pocket. You never know. But I wasn't going to let him have that chance.
He might have been strapped with a bomb. Who? Oh, this was a little early for that stuff.
This might have been before before we were okay with
Before
terrorism.
we had a big problem with that. You know, it's funny though. Most people carry a weapon to protect themselves from just such a situation, and rarely does anybody carry one with the idea that I hope I get to use this. Most people would rather carry one for 50 years and never have to pull it out or show it to anybody. And it's funny because politicians think that passing all these gun laws are going to prevent people from being able, to commit crimes, when people from being able to defend themselves.
Exactly. And that's, one thing that, and not to get into politics because we really want to talk about guns here. But just so you'll know, you're never going to hear the left or anti-gun or anti-Second Amendment people. They're never going to talk to you about the actual real statistic of how many crimes are stopped by a concealed weapons permit holder. And they're not going to tell you, Roger, how many, and I bet you can tell me this, how many crimes are committed by concealed weapons permit holders?
Oh, it's almost non-existent.
It's pretty much zero.
It's less than 1%.
Yeah.
In fact, they were talking about passing the Hearing Protection Act, which has been floating around for a couple of years now, which will basically remove federal regulations from having a suppressor or a silencer, be able to just purchase it as you would a standard weapon. And people go, oh my God, the crime is going to explode. Everyone's going to use a silencer or suppressor. Well, let me tell you something. Since 1934, when the NFA laws were passed, the National Firearms Act, which limited fully automatic suppressors, short barrel rifles, short barreled shotguns. Since 1934 to the present day, there have been 2 instances, just 2, where a weapon that was limited by the NFA was used in a crime. And one of those was a police officer. So you can't tell me that that's a big problem.
Of course.
But now you got to realize the politicians are so hypocritical in the way they do things. So many of them want to keep guns or armed guards, but don't want you to have the same right to defend yourself or your family. In fact, one of the most famous, Senator Dianne Feinstein, held a weapons permit for years and campaigned against people being able to get them in her home state. But she thought she was above the law or better than everybody else.
So just let me chime in here for a second. And again, I promise I'm going to keep politics on the low. But I mentioned it before, Roger, in the first hour of my show. Politicians, socialist Democrats, the policies they put forth are for the people, not for them.
Oh, yeah. They believe
that's just the way it is.
They are royalty, basically. Mm-hmm. They're trying to separate people into classes. And the easiest way for them to do this is to separate people into groups. You're black, you're white, you're yellow, you're gay, you're straight, you're male, you're female, you're old, you're young, you're Republican, you're Democrat. And that way it keeps people fighting amongst themselves and you don't focus on what the politicians are doing. It used to be, it was the politicians of government against all the people. And they would hold the government accountable. And now that the government officials have learned this way to separate people out, it keeps people fighting amongst themselves. It's crazy.
Boy, don't you miss those days, because you're absolutely right. It used to be we the people, and people would stand up for common sense issues and demand that the government, if you're going to force it on the people, then you need to do it.
Right.
In fact,
like with Obamacare.
Yeah,
it's good for you, but not for us.
Exactly. And like I always say, socialism is for the people, not for the socialist. Well, let's move on to some of your more gun
besides
issues.
Dianne Feinstein, she was one of the big ones that pushed all the gun laws. Now, what's her name? Kamala Harris. She stated she owns a gun for protection. I'm a gun owner. I own a gun probably for the reason a lot of people do, for personal safety. But then in the next breath, she talks about enacting gun laws, taking away, quote unquote, assault rifles from people because they're so dangerous. So she wants to be able to have guns, have armed guards, and yet take that right away from you, which, again, they think they're royalty. And don't they realize the last time this happened, the British tried to take weapons away from colonists soon to become United States citizens.
So she actually admitted that she has a gun for protection.
In Iowa in 2020, in a campaign stop for the 2020 primaries, she admitted she owns a gun for protection.
I always say if you just listen to a politician and then look at their actions, it's
right.
two different
I don't want
stories.
anybody to have guns, but I'm going to have one because I need it for protection because I'm special.
Yeah, it's just like celebrities today. You had Alyssa Milano running around screaming that no one should have a gun while being escorted by her armed security
guards. Yeah. And then my favorite, though, is Eric Swalwell, if I'm pronouncing his name right. On November 16th, he was talking about confiscating guns or buying back semi-automatic weapons, that nobody should have them and everybody's going to be forced to comply with this law. And, of course, there's probably the 3%ers out there who are going, if you tried to take away weapons from U.S. citizens, it would probably start a war. So rather than just, smile and sit back and go, well, we would use the law to enforce this, he'd go, oh, it would be a short war because the government has nuclear weapons. So he essentially threatened U.S. citizens with using nuclear weapons on them if they did not comply with his unconstitutional law. Now, I don't know the history, but I would guess that no other politician in this country, at least, has ever threatened its own citizens with a nuclear strike.
Yeah. Well, and then get away with it.
Right. And then, of course, they came out, he's just kidding. It wasn't for real. It's like whenever you threaten nuclear weapons against your own citizens, you shouldn't joke about things like that. I don't know about you, but that's not something you joke about.
It's not only did he get away with it, like you said, they protected him. Now imagine if a Republican said something like that.
Oh my God, it would be blasted from the rooftops. They would be all over the media. They would be branding this guy as some kind of crazy, quote unquote, Hitler who wants to take over the world and nuke all the citizens. Although if you look at the way things are done with these gun owners, I mean, they generally are law-abiding citizens who follow the rules, and all the laws that are being made just apply to law-abiding citizens. Criminals don't obey laws anyway. That's why putting more laws in place to the, I think, 11,000 gun laws that are already on the books would be just ridiculous. Enforce the ones they have. If Democrats really wanted to keep the guns out of the hands of people who shouldn't have them, maybe they should have voted to report illegal aliens who attempt to buy weapons to ICE. There was a bill that went up before Congress saying if any illegal alien attempts to buy a weapon, he should be reported to the immigration control immediately. Democrats voted against that and stopped the bill from going through. So it sounds like they believe people should be able to have guns, just not American citizens.
Yeah, well, today's Washington swamp, they care more about illegals, let's just say illegals, than they do about American citizens.
Well, there's a reason for that. I mean, apparently Americans don't want to vote for them anymore, so they have to bring other people into the country who will vote for them.
Well, you've got to constantly increase your voting base. But okay, back to guns.
Yes, and it's funny that this gentleman threatened Americans with a nuclear strike if you don't follow my unconstitutional gun law. And I don't think he remembers the last time this was tried was back in 1774, 1775. The British decided, okay, the colonists no longer need to have weapons. Anything that was a military-style rifle was not to be allowed to be had. And in this day, anything with a loading rod that was made of metal was considered a military-type weapon. And they were trying to confiscate them. And, of course, at this point, the citizens realized if they give up their weapons, they will never have a chance to have a free society. Okay, we'll be back in a few minutes after these words from our very dearly loved sponsors.
That's right. You guys hang on right there. You're listening to America's Web Radio.
Get your pen and paper ready. If there's a move in your near future, I'm here to tell you that the folks I used and now recommend is Around Town Movers. Timothy and the guys recently moved me, and I am and was totally satisfied with a sometimes not so fun experience moving. Call Timothy at 770-378-4708 and make it a good move and a good experience. Around Town Movers for that local or cross-country move. Timothy, Around Town Movers, in my opinion, are the best. That's Around Town Movers. Call them.
Whether cruising the strip in a 57 Chevy or taking the family on a vacation in a 71 Oldsmobile Vista Cruiser, you need to tune in to Classic Cars with Steve Ronaldo and Jim Weber every Saturday from 8 to 9 a.m. on americaswebradio.com.
You're listening to America's Web Radio on the americasbroadcastnetwork.com. Thank you for listening.
Welcome back. This is Roger Behar with Locked and Loaded with my guest host, Victor Armendariz from On Point with Victor.
Woohoo!
And we're talking weapons today. Guns, weapons, whatever you want to call them. Firearms, one of my favorite terms. And now we're going to get into a little bit of interesting business, the business of firearms. Let's say, now back in 2008, we all know that was a day or a year that was rough for everybody. The gun sales and ammunition sales at that point was about $19.1 billion, quite a substantial amount. However, 2018, that number rose to $52.1 billion. That's a 171% rise in the total economic impact of guns and weapons, firearms, and ammunition. Now, also, there was a big increase in employment from 166,000 people employed in any type of gun-related or firearms, ammunition-related industry, went up to almost 312,000, an 88% increase. And this is according to a report released by the National Shooting Sports Foundation. Now, as much as I like to give Trump credit for the economy, and I would love to give him credit for the gun sales, it's just not true. Here's where I have to give Barack Obama credit for this. He reigns as the best gun salesman of the year for almost every single year he was in office. That's right. Every record set as far as an individual day or a month or yearly sales was set during the Obama administration. Now, I have to say, congratulations, Barack Obama. I'm proud of you. I like what you did here. It's great that you were able to increase gun sales that much and keep ammunition prices high and everybody's still working. It's the one industry that boomed during your otherwise failing economy. And I just hope he's really proud of his legacy, because I, for one, am very proud of what he did here.
Hey, see, for those out there who say that people like us can't find anything good about Obama, there's something right there.
That's right. There was one Black Friday where...
Hey. We'll have none of that kind of racism here at this show.
The Friday after Thanksgiving, Turkey Friday, what do you want to call that?
You got to understand that when we say something like that, we're going to be accused of all kinds of stuff. Now, if we were a bunch of liberals here, we could say that. But please, go on.
Okay, the Friday after Thanksgiving, formerly known as Black Friday. There was one Friday where enough firearms were sold to give every single active member of the Marine Corps a gun. So basically, they sold over 186,000 firearms in one day. At least that was the background checks run. Chances are, yes, Dave, comment.
Yeah, comment. You said something about that there should be a law for every illegal that tries to buy a firearm or whatever. A minute ago you said that.
Just that the ICE be notified if they did.
Yeah, and that you have statistics like you just spouted on how many 186,000 firearms were sold. The thing that I would like to have statistics on is the dark market. I think it's called a black market, but anyway.
Again, we can't have that kind of racist talk here at America's Web Radio.
But I mean, that's, illegal doesn't have to go in a store and say, hi, I'm illegal, I want to buy a gun.
I'm a felon, I would like to buy a weapon.
All they have to do is go out on the street and whistle and say, I got cash and I'd like a whatever.
Well, steal it.
There was a politician who once said something basically to that effect. He said, if we take guns out of the stores, then nobody will be able to buy them. And I was thinking, when was the last time I saw meth on a shelf at a CVS? Yeah. Apparently, we all know that just doesn't work. Or for years, any of these drugs coming into the country, you couldn't buy them at your local Walgreens or Eckerd or Rite Aid or Walmart pharmacy. They were just out there.
So then that's obviously the same with every weapon going.
There was actually a study done, which I don't have the numbers with me, that showed over 90% of crimes were committed with illegal weapons. Weapons that were stolen, were illegally imported.
Or somehow
Didn't
illegally.
some attorney general let go of a bunch of...
Oh, that was just a mistake, I'm
Whoa.
sure. The Fast and Furious. Yes, we all know about that. That was Obama, part of Obama's legacy to sell more guns.
Another one of the non-scandals in the Obama administration.
Yeah, we never got the answers for that either. I'm just curious to
I
know
mean,
where they went, where they came from. And
Or, yeah.
exactly, because I think 2 border agents lost their lives to those guns that were tracked back to the Fast and Furious.
Yeah.
Which makes me rather furious.
It should make all American citizens furious. But, you know, and the problem is when those guns from Fast and Furious do come back across, they're usually coming back with the barrel pointed at American citizens.
That's right, and held by a cartel member or some gang member.
Mm-hmm.
But okay, anyway, back to we had the increase in sales during the 2008 to 2018 was tremendous. Now, because of the scare that was going on during this time period, during Obama's administration, ammo prices and gun prices had all gone up. Some ammo was almost non-existent. And those of you who remember, 22 long rifle was almost impossible to find. If you didn't have a stash somewhere, you were paying way too much if you could even get a hold of it at all. Because the supply was so restricted. But I have to say, after the 2016 election, the abundance of parts, accessories, guns, and ammunition was outstanding. In fact, right now is probably one of the best times in history to buy guns, ammo at some of the best prices I've ever seen. And I am going to credit this to Hillary Clinton, because I believe that with the media touting her win and her unconditional chance of taking this election and becoming the next president, that a lot of weapons companies, distributors, manufacturers all geared up production, stockpiled stuff, because they knew if she became elected, the prices would be skyrocketing and the profits would be there to be made. So thanks for that, Hillary Clinton. You helped bring about some of the cheapest gun prices in history. The Democrats just never stop contributing. It's amazing.
Well, they contribute inadvertently.
Well, you know, they don't necessarily try it.
They would never admit it.
Well, no, but, you know, if we're going to give them credit, let's give them credit for something they did do right.
Hey, for all of those out there, again, who say that we never give Democrats credit, listen to us now.
Right. Now, here we go. We're going to get into a little bit of this and see if anyone who does not own. Okay, we're going to settle something first of all, though. We're not going to call them assault rifles, because assault, first of all, is a verb, which is the act of inflicting physical harm or unwanted physical contact upon a person. So an inanimate object is not a verb.
Okay, now you're just trying to educate Democrats, and you know as well as I do that's not going to work. But please go on.
Oh, yeah. Okay, we're going to get into this. So by definition, AR-15s are not assault rifles, because an assault rifle is defined as a select fire rifle that uses an intermediate cartridge and a detachable magazine. They were probably first used during World War II when they first started becoming more popular. An assault rifle has a selectable switch which allows for semi-automatic fire or fully automatic fire or multiple shot bursts. Now, in a semi-automatic mode, you pull the trigger one time, one round of ammunition is fired, ejected, and a new one is chambered. And you must pull the trigger again before it fires a second time.
In layman's terms, one shot, one bullet.
One trigger pull, one shot. Now, with fully automatic, the weapon will continue to fire as long as the trigger is pressed or until it runs out of ammo.
And let me say that is glorious. It is a glorious feeling. But go ahead.
Oh, yes. And then, of course, there's the multiple shot burst, which allows a certain number of shots to be fired for each pull of the trigger, the most popular being the 3-shot burst.
Because normally 3 shots take care of the problem. But that's another issue for another day.
Right. But all AR-15s sold in this country are semi-automatic, meaning one trigger pull, one cartridge fired.
So what you're saying is a big, mean, scary-looking AR-15 operates pretty much like a handgun.
Like a handgun, like a semi-automatic shotgun, like any semi-automatic firearm. One pull of trigger, one cartridge fired. Now, I'm going to throw this out there. An interesting analogy would be your car. Even though the AR-15 looks like an M16, it doesn't perform the same way. Let's say on your personal car, you get sponsors. You paint sponsors all over your car. You put bigger wheels on your car. Does that make it a NASCAR? Probably not. It doesn't change the way the car performs. It just looks different. Does it look like a race car? Sure it does. If you want to drive around something that looks like a race car, that's perfectly legal, as long as you don't change the way it performs. The same thing with a military-styled rifle. You can dress it up however you want to. You're not going to change the one pull of the trigger for one shot.
Hey, I can take a Kia Sorento and put an exhaust system on it and make it sound really loud, but it ain't going to go faster.
No, and you can paint racing stripes on it. It doesn't make it a race car, no matter what you do to it.
So what you're saying, and what the wonderful swamp in Washington doesn't want to admit, is you can dress up a gun and make it look as mean and scary as possible, but it doesn't change the action of the weapon.
No, in fact, any gun supporter should probably stop using the term assault rifle. Use military-styled rifle, because assault rifle is a total misnomer. Assault rifles are used by militaries only, and on occasion, there are people who can buy them, but it requires an NFA paperwork check, a tax stamp, a $200 fine, tax to be paid, which is just a fine to exercise your Second Amendment rights. And when you do this, you have a gun worth thousands and thousands of dollars, most of which are in collectors' hands. Or sometimes the local range will buy one to allow a rental unit, something like that, so people can actually get a chance to fire something that is a dinosaur. And unfortunately, in 1986, they passed the Hughes Act, which limited all fully automatic weapons that were sold to the public, even with all the tax stamp and taxes and background checks, to be manufactured prior to 1986. So the supply was extremely limited after that point, and it is basically drying up. So all these guns have appreciated at a rate of almost 15 to 20% a year, which, if you look at it, is better than any stocks out in the market today.
You know, real quick, we got a new listener that's listening who just mentioned that they renewed their gun permit. So this might be a good opportunity to, if you have a gun permit, check your expiration date and make sure you're not missing that. Because trust me when I tell you, the government in every state, if you're in a city in any state, the government is working against you. So don't give them any reason to make it harder for you to renew.
Renew it prior to the expiration, and most states will save you some extra steps. Now, a few states give you a little bit of a grace period, and some states won't give you a permit at all.
Hello, California.
New York.
Chicago.
In New York, just to purchase a handgun, just buy it. Not carry it, not do anything else with it, just to be able to purchase one. There's a $300 application fee and a 60-page application you have to fill out in order to just purchase a handgun. Now, that seems kind of weird. I mean, they're saying, oh, background checks don't violate your Second Amendment rights. And, you know, they're right. No, but it violates my Fourth Amendment rights.
To name a few that are violated every day.
But after all, okay, so we're going to get back this. In 2016, the abundance of parts and accessories and guns themselves was amazing. And like I say, this is probably one of the best times in history to buy a military-style assault rifle, or any gun for that matter, because of all the companies who overstocked their inventories and placed orders years in advance to keep their inventories high because of the threat of Hillary's restrictive gun laws, which, thank goodness, didn't happen. We'll be back in a few moments after these words.
We're going to the next break here. You're listening to America's Web Radio. Come back. We'll be right back at the other side of this break.
Get your pen and paper ready. If there's a move in your near future, I'm here to tell you that the folks I used and now recommend is Around Town Movers. Timothy and the guys recently moved me, and I am and was totally satisfied with a sometimes not so fun experience moving. Call Timothy at 770-378-4708 and make it a good move and a good experience. Around Town Movers for that local or cross-country move. Timothy, Around Town Movers, in my opinion, are the best. That's Around Town Movers. Call them.
Perhaps you are struggling to cope with the disease of addiction. If not, you probably know a family member or friend that needs help in battling the cravings and the personal and professional damage done by the effects of drugs or alcohol. Get a pen and paper and be ready to write down the following. These are the issues that the trained staff at the Atlanta Healing Center address and treat every day. Their doctors and counselors with over 40 years of practice in the field of addiction can treat the suffering individual in a thoughtful, compassionate, and experienced manner and guide him or her along the path to recovery. So call 770-696-9862 and speak to a knowledgeable staff member about how you or your loved one can be helped to enjoy a better and healthier life. More information is also available on the website at www.atlantahealingcenter.com.
The disease of addiction is a life-altering challenge, not just for the person suffering its effects, but also for the family and friends who support and love the one caught in its grasp. What should be the course of treatment? Who is the best person to render treatment? And what is the best place to go for the care that is needed? We know that you want answers to these and many more questions. Call 770-696-9862 and speak to a representative of the Atlanta Healing Center. They can tailor a program specifically designed to address the needs of the person suffering with an addiction, or give you guidance as to where that help may be found. Information is the key, and the trained staff at AHC is here to assist. If you wish, you can also get more information on the website located at www.atlantahealingcenter.com.
You're listening to America's Web Radio on the AmericasBroadcastNetwork.com. Thank you for listening.
Welcome back. You're listening to Locked and Loaded with Roger Behar and my special guest today, Victor Armendariz.
Yes, and we're having a great time. And if any of you out there have questions, this is the time to ask Roger, the guru of guns. I often refer to Roger as the walking encyclopedia of gun knowledge. So if you have a questions, hop on live Facebook and shoot us a question.
Okay, good point there.
Yeah, right. Pardon the pun, but shoot us a question.
We'll do our best to answer it because I don't know everything. But okay, so in 2016, the abundance of parts ammunition was tremendous. It's never been a better time to get one. Now I'm going to say, okay, well, did you have a question, Victor?
So we do have a question coming in. So the question coming in right now is asking Roger, I would like to get an AR-15, especially before they're banned again. Should I go and find one or should I build one?
Okay, this is a great question because there's an answer to this. It depends, first of all, on how, let's say how handy you are. But I'm going to give you options at all skill levels. Because one option of putting together an AR-15, I'm going to explain why this works. First of all, you have to define what a firearm is. What constitutes a firearm? Usually there's one part of a weapon which has the serial number or some sort of identifying mark, and that is considered the gun by the ATF. And any guns sold in this country are subject to an 11% excise tax. So the smaller parts you can break the gun down into, the less excise tax you have to pay because you're buying less of it at one time. So the idea is if you buy just a lower piece, you pay excise tax just on that part of the gun, or just that part which is considered the gun.
And anytime you can pay less taxes, the better.
Well, yeah, I mean, I don't want to deprive the government any money that they're legally entitled to, but
I do.
Let's go to the legal ways to avoid paying more taxes on a gun, because after all, the taxes you save on a gun become ammunition money, become accessory money, become magazine money. It's funny how magazine starts with MAGA, just to throw that out there. So let's just say you want to build a gun and you're pretty handy and you know what you're doing. You can buy the lower unit, which has the serial number on it. Now, these can be had from anywhere from about $40 to $200, depending on how fancy it is, what it's made out of, whether it's forged or whether it's cast. And you can buy these and assemble your own weapon by putting the internals into the lower receiver, which is the trigger mechanism, the safety mechanism. You have the pins which hold the lower to the upper. You also have the rear stock, buffer tube, spring, things like that. Those of you who have done this know it's not terribly hard. It's a fairly simple procedure, but some people, especially if it's your first one, you may not feel comfortable doing that. But those of you who do or can watch a YouTube video and put it together, be a great way to try it. Now, ideally, let somebody who's done this before or let a shop look at your work before you go fire it to make sure everything is assembled correctly, or certainly do a function check, make sure everything seems to work properly before shooting it. But for those of you who do not want to assemble your lower from scratch parts, there's another option. You can buy the lower fully assembled, which means the trigger mechanism, safeties, all that already installed. The rear stock is already on it, but you have no upper. Now, the upper part of an AR-15 is generally the most expensive part because it contains the barrel, the bolt carrier group, the handguard, all the parts that are bigger and more expensive and more costly to produce. But if you buy this separate from the lower, then you don't pay excise tax on it because it's just considered parts. And parts are not taxed with the same tax as a gun is. So what you want to do is find a lower. Now, there are a lot of companies out there who sell them in pieces like this. You buy the lower assembly and you can attach it to the upper assembly by pushing 2 pins into place. In fact, if you can't do this, you probably shouldn't own a weapon. Because it's more difficult to load and charge a weapon than it is to put the lower half to the upper half. But
well, there's probably a lot of things that people can't do that shouldn't do and shouldn't do that are doing. And well, I'll stop there.
Yeah. Well, now the 11% tax goes to a good cause. It goes for conservation efforts for hunters and sportsmen and things like that. So, if you do buy a weapon, don't feel bad because, like I say, this is still one of the best times in history to buy one at the best possible prices. But if you want to assemble, this can be a hobby that can be very dangerous because it's very addicting. No one can have just one. And they're not potato chips. They're AR-15s.
They ought to you can make an NRA or a commercial if you're Glock or any other maker out there for any gun, really, because you can't just have one.
No, of course not. Of course, the guy who does have one gun, he's the guy to be wary of because I'm pretty sure he knows how to use it.
Yeah, this is true.
But there are many companies out there that sell the lower halves completely assembled, upper halves completely assembled. And if you learn how to just put these 2 pieces together, push 2 pins together, there, you've just built your weapon and you save the excise tax on the entire upper half. What this also gives you is the option to change calibers by changing an upper half. The magazines for a 300 blackout and a 5.56 or 223 are identical. So you can buy an upper half and a 30 caliber, snap it onto your AR-15 lower, have a 30 caliber weapon, swap it back to the 5.56, and this literally takes seconds. I could teach someone's grandmother how to do this in 90 seconds.
So are you telling me you could teach Alexandria Occasional Cortex even?
Well, that might be a bit of a stretch. I think there are trained monkeys who I could teach faster, but we could certainly give it a try if she's willing to learn. I'm willing to take on anybody who's willing to learn because I can fix ignorant, but I can't fix stupid.
Ain't that the truth?
So anyway, if you want to go shopping, there are several sites. I'm going to throw out a few names here. There's a place called Classic Firearms. They're known for having uppers and lowers. Rainier Arms sells some of the higher quality, or not higher quality, higher end pieces. If you want to build something with more accuracy inherent by better barrels, better assembly techniques. Or if you want to go completely crazy and learn how to put one together completely by yourself, you can buy each piece individually and learn how to put it together. But one of my favorite sites is Palmetto State Armory, located in South Carolina. They are probably one of the largest sellers of AR-15 parts, accessories, and even ammunition as of late. There you can buy uppers and lowers completely assembled. Now keep in mind, however, if you buy the lower assembly or even just a lower receiver, this must be shipped, if it comes from out of state, must be shipped to a federal firearms license dealer, an FFL dealer. That's because you have to fill out the background check form or have your carry permit in order to purchase any type of gun. Despite what liberals think, you can't just go to a gun show, buy all the machine guns you want, and take them home in the trunk of your car. You must have identification, you must have a carry permit, or you get subjected to an instant background check, which they run either while you wait or while you browse for ammo for your new gun. So the gun show loophole is a complete fallacy. There is no way to just go to a gun show and buy guns from a dealer without filling out the licensing and background checks. But once you do, the door is open and away you go. You're off and running. And since the AR-15 is so versatile, there have been companies now which have developed what we call pistol braces. These braces enable you to hold an AR-15 with one hand. Now, why you'd want to do that? Because it turns it into a pistol. Because a rifle legally must have a 16-inch or longer barrel. A pistol can have a barrel of any length shorter than that and still be classified as a pistol. And the brace has now been approved for use on your shoulder. Now, how does this vary from a stock? That's, it's a technicality probably. But you can basically avoid the short barrel rifle tax stamp just by getting a pistol brace and putting your AR-15 together with that. Then you can run a barrel as short as 5 or 6 inches if you would like. No problems. But back to putting them together. Once you get all your parts, most of these parts will come without magazines, without sights. So be careful when you choose your parts, because you want to make sure if you want to have sights on it, you can probably buy an upper that's already got it on there. Sometimes you can buy one with a red dot already attached. Now, most of these are just put on. They're not sighted in. So you will have to go to the range and make sure your sights or scope or red dot is set up to hit your target at whatever distance you're planning. But once you get this set up, you have the satisfaction of putting it together yourself. It makes it so much more fun. And it's kind of like, I've been told it's like Barbies for men. Barbie has the house, the car. She's got a couple of Kens here and there. She's got a ton of outfits. The AR-15 is the same way. You've got different uppers, different lowers, different sights, different grips. You can customize one from the ground up to be specifically yours. And then let's not even get into colors. Oh my goodness. With Cerakoting, you can make it any color you want or a mix of colors. You can have a theme-based one, which is so much fun. A lot of those are really nice to look at. But like I said, the prices have never been better, so now would be the time to build one. Now, there's also, we're going to get into another way. If you want to go beyond just putting a lower together, putting lower parts in it, and putting an upper together, we're going to get into something called an 80% lower. This actually requires machine work and does not require any sort of licensing. They can ship this directly to your house, assuming your wife doesn't find it first, and you can start working on it right away. Now, you do need more intricate tools. You ideally have a drill press or at least a drill that you can mount somewhere to make these function, and they do require a lot more work. But with the gun laws that are currently in place, these guns can be sold to you directly, or these gun parts, because they're not complete guns. They're 80% lowers, which means they're 80% of the way finished, because that is the legal limit they can be finished before they're considered a gun.
But you also have to have some sort of knowledge of the use of said tools.
Yes, you can't just buy the tools and expect them to put themselves together. Just like
basic
you can't
knowledge.
buy a quote-unquote assault rifle.
That's exactly right. Well, we're going to go to a next break here, Roger, but when we come back, I've got another question from another listener.
Oh, good. We'll look forward to it.
So, folks, tune in. We'll be right back on the other side of this break.
Quick Stakes, that's Quick Stakes, are not just for surveyors. They are great for family and community gardens. Go online to www.quickstake.com or contact your local land surveying supply dealer and get you a box of Quick Stakes. You'll love them every year when you plant your garden. Again, that's Quick Stakes, Quick Stakes, the truly preferred way to stake and identify what's in your garden now.
The Docs for Patient Care Foundation is your way to join the fight and become a member of an organization created by doctors for patients dedicated to fighting for your healthcare freedom and preserving the doctor-patient relationship. Get a pen and paper. Write down www.docsforpatientcarefoundation.org. That's www.docsforpatientcarefoundation.org. Go to our site and please make a generous tax-deductible donation and join the fight today. Thank you.
This is Dr. Susan Blank, host of Detailing Addiction and medical director of the Atlanta Healing Center. Please join me on Tuesday afternoons at 4 p.m.
The disease of addiction is a life-altering challenge, not just for the person suffering its effects, but also for the family and friends who support and love the one caught in its grasp. What should be the course of treatment? Who is the best person to render treatment? And what is the best place to go for the care that is needed? We know that you want answers to these and many more questions. Call 770-696-9862 and speak to a representative of the Atlanta Healing Center. They can tailor a program specifically designed to address the needs of the person suffering with an addiction or give you guidance as to where that help may be found. Information is the key, and the trained staff at AHC is here to assist. If you wish, you can also get more information on the website located at www.atlantahealingcenter.com.
You're listening to America's Web Radio on the AmericasBroadcastNetwork.com. Thank you for listening. You're listening to America's Web Radio on the AmericasBroadcastNetwork.com. Thank you for listening.
Hello and welcome back to Locked and Loaded. I am Roger Behar with my special guest co-host today, Victor Armendariz.
Absolutely, sitting here. And Roger, we have another question. So listener wants to know, if I decide to buy an AR-15 instead of building my own, what are some of your favorites and from the low to mid-range price range?
Low range, you could probably pick one up for $400. That's completely assembled. Now, this may or may not have sights on it. You may have to get sights or an optic or something to be able to actually shoot it. Although I have to say, I was at a range safety officer once working at a local range, and there was a gentleman there with his newly purchased AR-15, and it had no sights on it, and he was trying to shoot it. And he was wondering why he couldn't hit the target.
Couldn't hit the broadside of a barn?
So he just, no one explained to him that you have to have something to line up to make it hit the target. But I explained it to him, got him, we got him. I think we got him a loan sight from the range there, and he was able to at least fire his gun. And I believe he ended up purchasing the red dot sight from the range. So it worked out for both of them.
Oh, that's excellent. So
for $400, you can probably get a base model. $400 to $600, you can probably even pick up a brand name such as a Smith & Wesson or a Ruger for around $600 in a basic AR-15. And the Ruger does come with actual iron sights at that price at around $600. Sometimes they can be had for a little less. And of course, the range goes up from there to thousands of dollars.
All right. Well, what would be some of the not brand names, but off brands that would be around that $400 range?
Well, I mean, they have the Omni Hybrid. This is one that you see a lot of times at the gun show. It is a polymer lower and upper, which means it's a form of plastic.
I was just about to say, and what is a polymer lower?
Polymer is it's a high strength plastic because the lower of an AR-15 has very little stress on it. Most of the stress is all in the upper portion. That's where the barrel with the bolt carrier that slides back and forth is. All the lower houses is the trigger and the safety assembly, and sometimes in the rear stock is screwed into the part of the lower there. So it's not a high stress area. Now, as far as longevity, so far there have been very few issues with these polymer lowers because they've refined them to the point where many of them have metal inserts in certain parts of the parts that are stressed a little more to make them go a little longer. And a lot of people don't shoot a whole lot. You know, most people go to the range a couple, 3 times a year. If you're going to put a lot of time on one, I would suggest spending maybe $100 more and buying the metal assembly for the lower as well. To me, it just, I don't know. Maybe I'm old-fashioned, but I like metal in my firearms instead of as much plastic. Although I have to say, I'm a big fan of Glocks.
Well, so am I. And I know, Glock, for some reason, it isn't the prettiest or the fanciest on the block, and people will knock sometimes with Glock lovers, but you can't stop my Glock. I love
That's
it.
right. The Glocks are a force to be reckoned with. And being that they are such a force to be reckoned with, there has been companies that have brought out now 80% lowers for Glocks. So you can build your own handgun from an 80% lower. Now, this does require some skill, as you have to shave off parts of the plastic and set other metal pieces into place into the plastic frame and drill out parts of the plastic to make everything fit together, and requires fitting and finishing, sanding. But you can build a handgun which requires no background checks or no government interference in your own home with standard tools.
And let's be honest, the people who are going to do that are your law-abiding gun enthusiasts.
Right. These are
mean,
people who
it's
are
not-
usually building something very specific. They want something built specifically to their hand, or they want to have
Right.
something for a specific purpose. For a criminal to go through all the time and effort to learn how to do this, he can go on the street and buy a gun much faster, much easier,
Mhm.
and probably for less money.
Or steal it. And I bring that up because trust me when I tell you, there are Democrats sitting out listening to this show who will jump on that and say, see, you can get a gun without a background, and all that mess that will come with the liberal argument. But again, there is no way that, a criminal always takes the path of least resistance in every aspect of a criminal's life, and they're not going to learn how to put together a gun.
If they wanted to work that hard, they would probably have a job and wouldn't need to steal anything.
Absolutely. So,
It kind of goes against their very nature.
exactly. So, when you're talking about the ARs from the $400 range and up, is there an issue with longevity?
I prefer the metal frames, the metal lower parts, which means you're probably going to be in the $400 to $500 range, as opposed to the $350 to $400 range, which is about the cheapest I've seen. Was a completely assembled weapon for $349.95 plus tax, of course. But if you want to get an extra one to keep in a car or truck gun or something, $350 plus $50 to $100 for a sight on it and a couple of magazines. That wouldn't be a bad way to have one stashed in a place where, in case you weren't at home, you'd be able to have access to a rifle. Because as a Marine Corps trainer once told me, he goes, the only use of your pistol is to fight your way to your rifle.
And then there's truth to that in home defense. For every Democrat out there who's protected by, whether it's the Secret Service or protected by Capitol Security or protected by private security, they will sit there and tell you and I, Roger, or any other law-abiding citizen, that we don't need an AR-15 in our house. We don't need a non-hunting style rifle for defense. That is the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard.
But it's like we said, there's no such thing as an assault rifle in civilian hands unless it's an NFA licensed item, which is a $200 tax stamp, serious background check. But AR-15s are not assault rifles.
Right.
They're semi-automatic, military-styled rifles.
But the argument that and let's just face it, the Democrats and the mainstream media lie about it all the time. And that's why they want to call it AR-15. That's why they, the Democrats and Washington swamp will use branding just as any company would use marketing branding. And they always brand gun owners and guns as scary,
Nuts,
evil,
Bible-hugging.
Yeah, Bible hugging, thumping,
Yes.
God fearing, deplorables, exactly.
Yay, deplorables. Woo-hoo.
But the point is, like you said, there is no assault rifle that I can go out and get today unless I want to go pay for a special
Right,
license.
and you have to have a background check that usually takes 6 to 9 months.
Exactly.
And you're not going to pay. You're going to pay between $30,000 and $50,000 for this weapon. If you have that kind of money, I don't think crime is going to be your biggest issue. Besides, you can modify semi-automatics to fire full auto, which I am not getting into here. But anything can be done a lot cheaper than going the legal route.
Right, but what we don't want is law-abiding American citizens to be sitting in their home and not. If you choose to defend yourself and prepare, you shouldn't be restricted by the federal government on how you're protecting yourself. And by that I mean there's instant after instant after instance where multiple assailants will try and prey on an old couple. who's
Right.
living in a retired home,
or even a family where they
or
know there's cash.
yeah,
If they know
or
they own a business,
Mhm.
they'll come after them because they know there's cash.
Exactly. When you face multiple assailants, you darn well better have something more than a revolver.
Well, let me tell you this. If you find yourself in a fair fight, your tactics are lousy.
Exactly.
Always take an advantage if you possibly can.
Exactly. The term shock and awe became real popular in the early 90s because of comparing the United States military might to everyone else in the world. And that's basically what you want. If you're at home and you've got assailants coming trying to knock your door down or knock your window in, you want to reply to that with shock and awe. At least I
Exactly.
do.
You want the biggest advantage that you can get.
Absolutely. Yeah. To me, my mom once asked me, which would be a great listener question today. What is a good, actually, she said, what is the best defense weapon? What's the best defense gun that I could have as a 70-plus-year-old woman? And I handed her a pump action shotgun so that just that sound alone on the other side of the door is going to cause any assailant to run.
Oh, you're breaking into my house? Let me play you the song of my people.
Exactly. Exactly. So
shotguns are great. Pistols are great. Some people use rifles or rifle caliber carbines. Any gun is going to be better than no gun in a situation where somebody's breaking in.
Exactly. And don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that everyone, if you're a liberal out there and you're against the Second Amendment, hey, fine. You have that choice not to have a gun in your house. You also have a choice to put a sign in your yard that says this is a gun-free zone. Let me know how that works out for you.
Or you can just be like Joe Biden, hang the double barrel off the back porch and fire off a couple of rounds and hope that scares them away.
And that is exactly what Biden said when he was asked about guns at one time.
Well, what's the other liberal defense technique? Just wet yourself and nobody will want to touch you.
Well, I don't know how well that's going to work in every situation, but it does seem to work for Democrats sometimes.
That's what they claim. Oh, that was a rape defense, perhaps, but why wouldn't it work for anybody else? Just wet yourself, and nobody wants to touch somebody who's all sitting in their own urine.
Yeah.
That would be disgusting.
It's amazing some of the things that a liberal can come up with, or an anti-constitutional.
I much prefer to rack my shotgun, level it at somebody's face, and make them wet themselves.
Exactly. Because then I don't need to shoot them and they can run away because no one wants to touch them.
Well, thanks for joining us today on Locked and Loaded. We have run out of time, but join us again next time. I'm Roger Behar with my co-host, Victor Armendariz.
You're listening to America's Web Radio on the AmericasBroadcastNetwork.com. Thank you for listening.
The disease of addiction is a life-altering challenge, not just for the person suffering its effects,